I call the member for Summerhill.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to speak on the Equality Legislation Amendment Bill LGBTIQA+ Bill 2023. I acknowledge the bill evokes strong views in the community, and I thank all constituents in Summerhill who have written to me to express those views, either in support of the bill or in opposition to the bill. Despite the breadth of views from across the community, it is important to understand that this bill does two things. It makes very important transformative change for the few people it directly impacts, and it sends a strong message that everyone in our community, including those from our LGBTIQA+ communities, are valued, are respected, and are cared for. And Speaker, I am very proud to support the bill. The Equality Bill makes substantive changes that addresses discrimination faced by LGBTIQA+ people in New South Wales. It amends the Birth, Deaths and Marriages Registration Act to allow for a person to change their sex on a birth certificate without needing to have irreversible surgery. It amends the Surrogacy Act of 2010 to ensure parentage orders can be made in certain circumstances for parents who have accessed international commercial surrogacy in order to form their families. It establishes a new coercive control offence where a person outs or threatens to out another person. It removes outdated offences related to circumstances where a person knowingly lived wholly or partly on the proceeds of sex work. The bill amends the Crime Sentencing Procedure Act of 1999 to clarify that the existing aggravating factor that applies where an offence is motivated by hatred against, where the offender believes the victim to belong to a group of people of a particular gender identity or within variations of sex characteristics. In short, crimes motivated by hatred of trans and intersex people are now to be treated the same as other hate crimes. The bill addresses language that is stigmatising for people living with HIV and AIDS, updating both the Drug Misuse and Trafficking Act of 1985 and the Workers' Compensation Act of 1987. And importantly, the bill amends the Mental Health Act of 2007 to provide that a person is not mentally ill or mentally disordered merely because the person expresses or refuses to express a particular gender identity or gender expression. Speaker, following amendments made by the member for Sydney, there are several reforms contained within the original bill that will be considered at a later time. Whether or not LGBTIQA students and teachers are protected from being expelled or fired from religious or private schools will be considered as part of the government's landmark review of the Anti-Discrimination Act, which is currently underway. Provisions that clarify consent requirements for young people seeking to access gender-affirming care have been withdrawn for consideration from the bill following advice. And Speaker, good progress has been made by the Minister for Health and New South Wales Health to support these young people and their families. And as Equality Australia has noted, the AMA and community advocates believe these changes are unnecessary and unhelpful, and removing these provisions will have no impact on young people and their families accessing gender-affirming care. Finally, consideration of provisions around street-based sex work offences can occur under the statutory review of the Summary Offences Act. Speaker, while this bill has evolved, we have today before us a real opportunity to make pragmatic, progressive and concrete change for the LGBTIQA+ communities, and Speaker, it is an opportunity we must not miss. New South Wales is the last state that still requires transgender and gender diverse people to undergo invasive, irreversible surgical interventions before being able to change their record of their sex on their birth certificate. Frankly, this arrangement is outdated, it is nonsensical, it is cruel. And I have met with several trans and gender diverse people from my electorate who have detailed the impact of this practice. A young trans person who is looking to find a job but has been hampered in their efforts because to do so on their birth certificate doesn't align with their gender identity. An older trans woman who experienced bureaucratic delays in accessing housing support because of discrepancies between their state-issued documentation and their gender identity. A Justice of the Peace who attended a local medical centre for half a day to ensure that they could witness the signature of two separate doctors who were affirming that a constituent had undergone gender-affirming surgery, a statement they could only make after undertaking an invasive medical examination. This was humiliating for the trans person undergoing the examinations, for the doctors and the GP, and it was utterly unnecessary. Now, Speaker, Equality Australia notes that a 2021 survey of 153 trans and gender diverse people born in New South Wales found that only 14.9% of people had been able to update their gender under the existing laws. Well, Speaker, it is well past time that we make this change, get this right and get it done. Speaker, the bill also creates a pathway for children born and families formed through international commercial surrogacy provisions to obtain parentage orders. Under current law, commercial surrogacy is illegal, and consequently, surrogacy parentage orders cannot be made in circumstances where a child is born through a commercial surrogacy arrangement. It means children in New South Wales who are raised in loving families, and both same-sex parented and opposite-sex parented families, mind you, are not recognised legally as the children of their parents under a range of laws, including superannuation and inheritance laws. That causes undue concern and distress to families and fails to recognise the many ways that families are formed. One Marrickville resident wrote to me to share their story. They said after exploring options for local fostering and adoption as well as domestic altruistic surrogacy arrangements, he and his partner chose to form their family through an overseas surrogacy. Years later, and the family still lives in legal limbo and in fear. And he said, and I quote, "In New South Wales, families through surrogacy can apply for a parentage order to transfer legal parentage from the surrogate to her partner and to the intended parents. However, my husband and I do not have this as we are still fearful of being charged with engaging in commercial surrogacy if we go before the court and admit to having our children through commercial surrogacy. This leaves my family and thousands of others in legal limbo. My husband is not recognised on any legal document as my daughter's parent. Her birth certificate has me and her surrogate listed. Her citizenship application only has me as her parent because of this, when I apply for a passport for my daughter, I do this as a single parent. I have sleepless nights worrying about what could happen if I were to die. How would my husband navigate the legal documentation often required of parents when there is no record of him? When I was recently filling out the NDIS application for my daughter, there was a question asking if I am the legal parent of the child I am applying for NDIS. I had to ask the question again, if it is not me, who is her parent? Not the wonderful, generous parent who gave birth to her 12 years ago, a person who she has no connection to. A person who has not changed her nappy, wiped her nose, picked her up from school when she's sick or kissed her goodnight. This is just one example of the impact in the legal limbos families like mine are facing. All children should be equal before the law, regardless of the circumstances of their conception. Speaker, this family is not alone. There are so many stories just like this one in my electorate and across the state, and these families need this bill. Because, Speaker, this bill as it stands delivers a pathway for families in these circumstances to have the certainty of parentage orders. And while I appreciate there will be some in the community who want a clearer outcome that addresses the illegality of commercial surrogacy itself, I note that there is a review currently underway into the Surrogacy Act, and there will be opportunities to assess whether the current laws are fit for purpose. Speaker, in conclusion, I think it's important, and I know many other speakers have done this, but I want to put on the record that the member for Sydney is an honest, principled and incredibly hard-working member of this place. He has worked tirelessly and he has continued in his absolutely persistent efforts to improve the lives of LGBTIQA+ people in New South Wales. And I appreciate that the road to get this bill here has been a very long one, and I want to pay tribute to him and also to all the incredible people in his office as well. Today is also a day to thank the many, many advocates from key community groups, including Equality Australia, Rainbow Families, from many members of the union movement, from ACON and from many others. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of the Honourable Penny Sharp, and also many of the advocates from our party as members of Rainbow Labor. Rainbow Labor has played a very powerful role in advocating for LGBTIQA+ members in the Labor Party and, of course, our allies. And because the leaders of Rainbow Labour have strong, long-standing ties to other community organisations, they've been able to navigate the complexities of this bill and work closely with members across the Parliament. Speaker, today is a truly historic day that delivers real, pragmatic and progressive change for the LGBTIQA+ community in New South Wales. Today is a result of persistence, of absolute patient advocacy. It is a big step in the right direction, and I commend this bill to the House.